This is your family's first and most important line of defense against Mother Nature. When she strikes, make sure you call the people that I trust, my family and friends at Exterior Home Solutions.
With Eric Kane, Brent Hubbs, Volquest.com, Exterior Home Solutions 2-minute drill. Tennessee back on the practice field today. Got a chance to see more than we normally see, so a lot to dive into. Give me your impressions offensively. Who stood out to you today?
Yeah, offensively, I think you even mentioned this to me. I mean, it was Deshaun Bishop for me. I mean, one of the guys, and I understand they don't have pads on or anything, but he looks a little bit different. I think he's continuing to change his body, certainly from when he arrived on campus, but I thought he looked good. Obviously, take note of Boo Carter running some drills at wide receiver and all that, but, I was watching a lot of the offensive line, who was where. I think it's hard not to be impressed with David Sanders. I know we'll speak about him in a moment. Just his athleticism, I feel like it just jumps off the page.
Yeah, well, let's just go ahead and go there. I mean, we had a chance to visit with, 5 freshmen today, and obviously all these guys are much more polished than they used to be. They did a really good job. Nobody's more polished than David Sanders.
Yeah.
I did think it was interesting in him talking about how much more relaxed he is now that the whole process is over. He's 20 pounds heavier, and he's patient. And I think it's kind of unusual to see someone of that ilk, someone with that notoriety coming in, expressing the patience that he seems to be expressing right now.
Yeah, I mean, he knows it's not going to be, Rome wasn't built in a day, and a lot of times people of his age don't understand that. And so he just well-spoken, obviously, because he's been throughout the interview process so many times. Such a polite young man. But, he was out there with the third group today. Again, this is day 2. Like, that's normal. I mean, guys who are with the first and second team won't be there here in a moment, some of those guys. So I think for him, and he mentioned he's just sitting back, he's talking, he's asking questions to Lance Hurd, to Larry Johnson. He's trying to learn. He spent a lot of extra time off the field, and it's that type of mentality that you couple with his athleticism and his body as it continues to get right. It's going to make for a pretty dangerous football player, and hopefully that becomes sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think the other thing that you know in talking to all those guys today too is just what it means to get in a true weight program, to get in a nutrition program. I mean, the weight gains that people are throwing at you from January to now is pretty crazy when you start talking about guys adding 10, 15, 20 pounds, not just linemen, but running backs, receivers, different guys like that.
It's a whole process. I mean, how many of those guys that we just listened to, we talked to 5 of them, probably 4 of them mentioned like, ooh, 6 o'clock, gotta wake up, get the body woken up, gotta go work out at 6:30. You just gotta wake up, gotta get used to it, but you're starting to do that, and obviously the weight gain, David Sanders mentioned it, and several other guys. It's big, and then learning how, and I asked David Sanders this question, like learning how to move and play at that weight. Like, again, this is day 2, shoulder pads aren't on, but you're going to have to get used to carry around that extra muscle, that extra weight, and it's a huge point of emphasis for especially young guys for spring practice.
Yeah, and again, those young guys from Ethan Utley to DeJuan Morris, all those guys, certainly super impressive. But it's not all about young guys, too. I mean, you go back to the practice field, I thought Mike Matthews made a couple of really spectacular plays today. Defensively, Tyree West looks different. It's going to be interesting to see sort of how some of these guys factor in, but this is a young football team with a lot of parts to work with. Their development's going to be pretty fascinating here over the next few weeks.
Something that stood out to me from Tim Banks at the podium, he said, they look the way we want them to look. And that was that jumped off the page to me. I mean, that just goes and speaks to Schmidt and the strength and conditioning program and the year over year over year to kind of get it where you want to be. It's never going to be a finished product, but your starting point now with so many young guys, couple them with a couple of those veterans, I mean, you're starting at a spot where you at least have a chance because your body's right, your conditioning's right. And so that kind of jumped out to me. But a couple other veterans that stood out to me, I thought Miles Kitselman looked good. He had a one-handed catch over the middle that's really looked good. A freshman, one of our talking points coming in the spring was who's going to be that backup star behind Boo. Dylan Lewis getting a whole lot of run. Marcus Gorey a little bit as well. They're throwing some different pieces over there, but Dylan Lewis I think is one to watch. Yeah,
well, we'll see how it shakes out over the course of the coming weeks. Obviously, Tennessee back on the practice field Wednesday. They practice again Friday before spring break. We got full practice highlights. We've got interviews. We've got all kinds of observations and everything up on the site now, so you want to be sure and check it out. We'll have continued coverage of spring football throughout the week, some basketball, some baseball, recruiting, all of that coming up at Volquest. He is Eric Kane. I'm Brent Hubbs.